WordPress has this really unique feature for writing reusable pieces of code and exposing them to the end user to use them. It's called Shortcodes. Let's see what they look like. Let's create a new action on the init hook. Then let's echo the first built-in shortcode. This is an example shortcode that is built into WordPress itself. It's called the gallery shortcode. You can recognize shortcodes by an identifier or a name of the shortcode between two brackets. When we save this and reload the page, we'll see that now just the actual string gets echoed gallery with the square brackets around them. If we want WordPress to interpret the shortcode, we have to use the function doShortcode. And it accepts a string, and this string is just a string of text or a string of HTML, and it will search and find all the shortcodes in this string, and it will interpret it and replace it with the functionality that is given to the shortcode. When we save this and reload the page, we can now see that we have a gallery of images that's inside my WordPress. Next, we can also pass information to this shortcode, which is very similar to how HTML works. We can enter a space here and we can add parameters, just like HTML. This specific shortcode has an attribute called IDs, and it takes a comma-separated list of image IDs it needs to use to build a gallery. So we can, for example, say 6, and then when we refresh the page, it will be a gallery consisting only of the image with the ID of 6. We can add one more, and now it is 7 and 6. But we can, of course, not only use the built-in shortcodes in WordPress, we can also create our own. Let's do that right now. We can create our own by using the add shortcode function. This takes as first parameter the name of the shortcode we want to use. So in this case, the name was gallery, and in our case, the name is test. And as second argument, it takes a callable function. And this callable function takes two attributes, two parameters. And the first is called attributes, and the second is called content. Let's for now just var dump both these variables so we can see what's inside of them. We create our test shortcode, so let's call on it. So let's echo the doShortcode function, and inside of that our newly created shortcode. Let's save this and refresh the page, and now we can see that there's an empty array and an empty string. So what are these two right now? The attributes is an array that will consist of all the attributes we will pass to the shortcode, just like we did with the gallery. So let's say we say test equals test. When we save this and reload the page, we can see that the array is now populated with one key test and one value of that test. Let's change this and let's say test value so we can see which one is which. Refresh and we can see the attribute and the parameter test, and it is the attribute test value. We can add more, of course. We can say test2 is equal to test value 2. We save this, refresh the page, and we can see we get both test and test2. So what is this content? Well, actually shortcodes do not only consist of a starting tag, just like HTML, it can also consist of a closing tag, just the same way, with square brackets, a slash to indicate it's the closing tag, and the same name as the opening tag. And everything we put between these two tags will be passed to the function in the content. So this can be anything. It can say a test value string, it can have some HTML in it, it can have everything. And that's the beauty of this. It's not restricted by a key and a value between two quotes. It is just like a here doc, just a piece of code that's in between it. It gets stringified and it gets passed to the content. This is especially handy if you want to have strings with HTML in them, so you don't have to encode them and pass them. You can just put it all between the content. The downside is you can only have one content attribute. WordPress also gives us a very handy function that helps us with parsing our attributes. It's called the shortcode adds function. This function takes an array and a second an array with the values we get from our shortcode from the shortcode function. And in this array, we pass a key value pair with every parameter, every attribute we expect to receive from the shortcode, and put a default value right here. If this attribute does not get passed to our shortcode function, it will still create it in the attributes array, but it will now set it with the default value of our key value pair. Let's save the result of this function back in our attributes, and let's var dump it and see what this looks like. So when we refresh the page, we can see we have test with a value of test value and test2 with a value of test value 2. This is because we passed both of them to our shortcode, so this whole section gets ignored. But if we now, for example, remove the test2, and we refresh the page, we can now see that we have test with test value, and we can see that we also have test2 with default value 2. So it does not get passed, and when it gets here, it sees, okay, test2 is not set. Let's set it and put the default value inside the array. Okay, let's now actually make our shortcode do something. Let's rename it to user. Let's remove the var dumps, and let's say it accepts a name and a last name, and set the default value to Mark and the final last name to Hendricks. And let's remove the var dump and replace it with an echo saying hello, attributes, name, and a space and the last name. Let's refresh the page, and now we can see that actually we still set do the shortcode with our old shortcode, the test shortcode, but we can now see that it just echoes the real string of the shortcode. The do shortcode function will only replace shortcodes that it recognizes and that it knows, and the rest he will just put on the screen as plain text. Let's remove this and let's call our user with name equals Bob and last name equals Bobby. Let's close the shortcode, save and refresh the page, and now we can say hello Bob Bobby. But if we now remove both of them and just call the user shortcode as is, when we refresh the page we can see it is now Mark Hendricks, because this name is the default value Mark and last name is the default value Hendricks. Now, if we actually want to use this shortcode, we should not echo our strings directly in our function. What this function expects is that we return a string with the result of our shortcode. Because this is a simple string, we can just return it, save it and refresh the page, and now we can see that nothing has changed. If you have some more code and maybe different kinds of complicated HTML structures, I recommend the ob_start function and then returning the ob_getClean. This ob_start function catches everything that will be printed to the screen, and this ob_getClean will concise it all in one string, and we return that string directly right here. So if you return this and refresh the page, we can see it still says hello Mark Hendricks. Now that we have created our shortcode, we can call it inside our script right here, but we can also now use it in the default WordPress editor. So let's open our hello world, and we can use here the shortcode block, and inside this block we can just type it just the way we did in our script. Let's save it and let's look at the page, and now we can say see hello world, the default text, and hello Mark Hendricks. And we can use it in posts, we can use it in pages, we can use it in widgets, we can use it everywhere. Let's pass the name Bob and save it and refresh the page, and we can see hello Bob Hendricks. This was a basic introduction of how to create shortcodes and how to use them in the WordPress environment. I hope it was helpful. Thanks for watching. Bye.